At a high school Christmas concert, an assistant principal publicly shames a cafeteria worker by yanking a donated red coat and calling security to check her bag. A probationary school social worker cuts the microphone, puts the coat on the worker's shivering child, and accepts a write-up and badge surrender. Quiet care that night, and a glimpse of an eviction notice reshape what the coat meant, and small, lasting changes ripple through the school. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And hey, where are you tuning in from? Leave your country in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories reach. The assistant principal yanked the red coat out of her hands. He held it up like contraband and spoke into the microphone. "Donations are for students," he said, voice booming over the risers and sugar cookie tables. The buzzing fluorescent lights made his grey suit look the color of old snow. People turned. Some held their phones like tiny windows. The woman in the black polo flinched. A canvas tote hung from her wrist. "Please," she said. But the mic had already moved on without her. "Security, please check her bag," he said. "We need to set an example." Kids in red polo shirts froze on the stage steps. A fifth grader slipped a plastic flute into a sleeve and stared. The tree in the center of the commons blinked unevenly. One strand stuck on steady. The coat tag swung, the price still on it like a dare. Mara had been stacking paper cups by the cocoa urn. The steam on the metal urn made her face damp. She heard the tone before the words and knew what was coming. The way you know a glass will shatter the second it leaves a hand. Her job was to keep the drive clean. Forms signed, names crossed out, dignity intact. The guide was in her email again and again. No questions at pickup, no public sorting. She had written that sentence. She had sent the reminder that morning. Her contract was still probationary. The assistant principal's signature lined the bottom of the form that would decide if she had a job past spring. He had told her last week the donors were nervous after inventory issues. He had looked at the bin like it might jump. Mara saw the woman. Laurie, cafeteria line, quick hands pressed the tote to her side. Behind Laurie, a boy in a thin grey hoodie rubbed his arms and watched the coat like it was a window to somewhere warmer. The boy's lips looked pale. It was 10 degrees outside and falling. Mara could either wait for it to get worse or put herself directly in the way. She put the stack of cups down and walked past the raffle baskets. Her boots squeaked on a wet patch. The assistant principal kept talking into the feedback squeal like a man who had to fill space. "We've had, issues. We can't play favorites." He wasn't a cartoon villain. He looked tired. His red tie was loose. Mara stepped forward and pulled the mic cable from the box. The mic died with a soft pop. The room exhaled. "Excuse me," she said to him, quiet and close so it wouldn't have to travel. "I'm the sponsor of the coat drive. Policy says staff can access donated items for family without public ID checks. We sign out on Monday." He reached for the cable. "We've had things disappear," he said. "Lower now but sharp. I'm not doing another apology tour. We have donors in the room." He glanced at the table where 3 PTA moms stood with plates, watching like hawks. Mara slid past him to Laurie. "Is it for him?" she asked, but she already knew. Laurie nodded once, eyes on the boy. Her fingers were chapped raw. She slid the red coat onto the boy's shoulders. The coat swallowed him and zipped smooth. He closed his eyes like someone had set a fire in a cold house. The tag scratched his chin. Mara tore it off and crumpled it in her palm. "This is not how we do this," the assistant principal said, louder again. He looked at the security guard, a stocky man in a Santa hat, waiting for backup. "Take it up with me Monday," Mara said. "Ride me up. The coat stays on." A woman by the cookie table muttered good, and then looked away fast, like she hadn't meant to say it out loud. Phones were still up. People love a clean story with a villain and a hero. This wasn't that, and Mara felt the danger of it in the back of her neck. She saw other things too. January, a desk cleaned out, the look on her landlord's face. "Give me your badge, Mara." The assistant principal held out his hand like he wanted to make it neat. His jaw worked. "For the night, we'll discuss your insubordination." Mara unclipped her lanyard. The plastic sleeve was warm from her skin. She set it in his hand. He closed his fingers like he was picking up something hot. The security guard walked beside her toward the glass doors. He didn't touch her, just kept pace. Outside, snow came down in a curtain. Her car was a hummock under white. In the parking lot, breath smoked in the cold. Laurie came out a minute later, the boy swallowed by the red coat, his hands in deep pockets like he'd been born in it. Laurie kept her eyes down. The building behind them hummed with carols. "I don't have a ride," Laurie said finally, voice flat like she was braced for another blow. "I've got you," Mara said. "Come on." The boy climbed in the back and buckled himself carefully, like a rule he had learned early. The seat creaked under the snow weight. Mara turned the heat up until the vents clicked. They drove slow, wipers dragging across a white film that never quite cleared. The world was the color of salt. She pulled into the corner market with the blinking beer sign. 2 minutes, she said. Stay warm. She grabbed milk, bread, apples on sale. On a corner end cap, 2 rotisserie chickens spun, pale and sad under heat lamps. She took one anyway. Her card beeped. For a second the screen hesitated, and she had a small, precise spasm of panic. Then it approved, and she breathed again. Back in the car, she handed the boy a warm container. He looked at his mum and then at Mara, waiting for permission. "Eat," Laurie said. "Careful, it's hot." Laurie's building smelled like boiled cabbage and pine sol. A strand of lights blinked around a door at the end of the hall. The elevator was out of order and held a handwritten note about parts on back order. They took the stairs. Inside, the heat was either all on or all off. Tonight, it was off. The windows wore a skin of ice at the edges. A folding table leaned in for a kitchen. 2 chairs. A rectangle of linoleum peeled at one corner, like a scab. Mara set the food down and washed her hands at the sink, cold water only. On the counter sat a chipped mug with a snowman on it. She dug a spoon out of a drawer and cracked the chicken open in clean, fast motions. Steam wet her face again. The smell of salted meat filled the little room. The boy ate in focused bites that said he was used to making something last. Laurie didn't touch her portion at first. She stood staring at it, hands pressed flat on the table, like she might wake up if she blinked. "Eat with him," Mara said, because sometimes people needed instructions that were ordinary and simple. She found a string of dollar store lights coiled in her trunk from last year's office move and plugged them in above the window. They worked except for one dead bulb that made a dark eye in the chain. She taped them up with blue painter's tape from her glove compartment. The room softened. "Do you have a tree?" she asked. Laurie shook her head. "We had one once," she said. She ran a thumb over a nick in the table. "He wants to leave milk out. For Santa," she said. Santa, like she knew it was silly and still wanted it to be true. Mara looked around. On a crate by the sink sat a wadded ball of green garland. She teased it out and draped it over the window. It wasn't a tree, but it tilted toward the idea. In the tiny living room, a radiator ticked without heat. A space where a couch should go was filled with a blow-up mattress. On it lay a folded blanket with cartoon rockets. A pink paper stuck under a magnet on the fridge caught Mara's eye. "Notice to vacate," it said in block letters. "Move-out date, December 27. Under it, a pharmacy bag with an inhaler label. Next to that, the field trip form, unpaid. Mara didn't say anything. She picked up the pharmacy bag and put it by the door so no one would forget it in the morning. She tucked the eviction paper back under the magnet, squared. She took the boy's thin hoodie, now abandoned on the floor, and laid it over a chair to dry. Laurie watched her and said, "The coat? I wasn't taking it for me." She stopped, the rest of the words trapped like fish under ice. "I know," Mara said. She took the tag out of her pocket, that stiff little square, and set it under a cup. It was a small, mean thing, and she kept it close. They ate. The room warmed from bodies and the lit sting of the lights. The boy got chicken grease on his cheek and didn't notice. Laurie swiped it away with a napkin and laughed once, short and real. It sounded like a sore muscle stretching. When they were done, Mara took the container to the sink and rinsed it. She used soap like it mattered. She folded the remains into foil and put it in the fridge, which hummed like it had something to prove. She wrote her number on an index card from her bag and left it under the snowman mug. "Call me if you need a ride to school," she said. "Or if the heat comes on at 3 a.m. and sounds like it's exploding." She kept her tone light. This was not a vow. This was a fact. In the doorway, Laurie hugged herself. "They're going to fire you," she said. "Not a question." "Maybe," Mara said. "We'll see." She looked at the boy in the coat, now asleep on the mattress, mouth open, a damp patch blooming on the pillow. She felt the moment click into place like a tooth in a socket. On Monday, a new handwritten sign hung on the donation bin. "No ID checks," it said. "No shaming. Please sign out with Miss Johnson, 2nd floor." The assistant principal hadn't written it. The handwriting looped with flourishes and little hearts, but it stayed up. The email from administration came mid-morning. Effective immediately, it said, all distribution of donated items will take place in room 204. By appointment, no public announcements. A line in a quiet font changed the way the building breathed. The security desk stopped paging people over the loudspeaker for petty things. Names for missing laptops, missing wallets, missing keys stayed on the clipboard. People came and stood in front of the desk and used their indoor voices. 2 cafeteria workers wore tiny Santa pins on their polos the next day. A freshman gave them to them between periods, cheeks bright with cold. A teacher, nobody watched much, started leaving a bag of bagels on the staff table by the coffee pot. Nobody wrote a sign. The bagels were just there. The assistant principal walked past Mara's office with a stack of folders and looked in. He inclined his head like something had been heard and not said. He didn't smile. Mara didn't either. The hallway kept being a hallway. The formal write-up took an afternoon. In the meeting, he said the words he had to say. He mentioned donors and audits and chain of command. He rubbed his eyes. He signed the paper. She signed it too. After he slid a post-it across the table with a room number and a time. "We're doing year-end distribution there," he said. "You should be the one to run it." It wasn't an apology. It was a hinge. That night, Mara stood in her dark kitchen and watched the snow thicken. The apartment windows made the whole world look like it had been put behind frosted glass. Her phone sat face down. The city hummed under the weather. She thought about the mic going quiet, about the weight of the coat in her hands. She thought about the way the boy's shoulders dropped when the zipper pulled up, like he believed he could go outside again. She thought about the eviction dates tucked under a magnet and a mug with a snowman on it. She didn't know what she had won or lost yet. The living room next door erupted in laughter and then went still. Somewhere, a radiator hissed like a shush. She hung the crumpled coat tag on her own fridge, with a stray magnet shaped like a strawberry. The tag's corner curled in the heat, a small red flag under the soft glare of the kitchen light.